we have our first candidate, if you're here and you come on up. Okay, so, thank you. You can take a seat. So we're going to, thank you for being here tonight, everyone. These are interviews for the council vacancy interviews. How we're gonna take this, everyone, there are questions and the schedule over on the table over there. Every council member wrote a question. We're going to go in alphabetical order by last name to ask the questions, but I will go last. I'm okay with always going last. And so once we begin, we sent an email to all the candidates so they knew what to expect. They can have their notes. We are going to ask the question. They're going to respond. There will be no commentary in between. At the end, if there is additional time, you can offer anything or have that brought, or we might have an additional follow-up. I am going to set an alarm once you say your name and your address for 15 minutes, because then that'll give us a 5-minute warning to know what we are. Okay. So thank you everyone for being here. Want to introduce yourself?
I'm Adina Caskey. I'm on the list as Adina Oliver Caskey. That's not my legal name. That's my email. But if anybody needs to change that, I live at 1019 Dale Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. Coming in tonight, council is often tasked with making decisions that have long-term impacts on the community well beyond any individual member's term of service. What factors would guide you in making those kind of decisions? And if you believed a decision was in the borough's long-term best interest but faced opposition from a segment of the community, how would you balance those conflicting considerations?
Sounds like a question I would write. That was 4 questions. I think some of the factors that would affect a decision would be the needs of the community, first of all. Also the critical nature of it is going to be affected, what things are going to be affected. And then I think something that is really, really important when you're having to make a decision, sometimes between something bad or worse, or something good or really good, is communication, listening, learning what others' fears are. I think a lot of times when we can't come to an agreement, it's because we have conflicting fears, or sometimes we have the same fears. And working collectively, yeah, I think creativity is a big piece. Working collectively and creatively, I think gaining buy-in from community members or people that have in conflict with, you sometimes can't solve these things overnight, it takes time. So, and I think, yeah, asking a lot of questions. I do a lot of listening, which I do a lot in my work as well. So I feel it's a strength of mine, and I'm seeing what the issues are at hand first and fully understanding that before we jump into suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And to follow up on Ms. Kenny's question, could you tell us about a specific time that you made a decision that maybe wasn't unanimously supported by either a team or a coworker? And how do you generally approach managing conflict in those scenarios?
I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. So I often have to make decisions that other people are not happy with. But if I look back, one of the hardest situations I faced as far as in a community setting, having to make a decision, I filled a position on a school board when we were my husband's in the Air Force and we were stationed in California. And there was a school board that had a vacancy that came up, and someone asked me to put in my application similar to this situation here. And I stepped in, and there were some gaps. There were some pretty big gaps that needed to be filled. And actually the president of that board was not very happy with some of the things that I said. Well, according to our bylaws, according to the law, we have to be doing some of these things and they're not happening. And I was the new person. I was brand new and I had to do this. And it goes back to what I mentioned in the last question, taking time listening to fears and seeing what people feel is really needed and necessary to fix the problem, and also understanding the problem. This particular problem we had was, the board was making decisions kind of the old fashioned way. They weren't really being as transparent as they should have been just because of time. They didn't have a lot of time. It was an all volunteer board. And so they would sometimes have to make decisions and they would just make a phone call to the other people on the board, and that wasn't above board. And so, yeah, a lot of talking, a lot of letters back and forth, conversations, emails. And yeah, just working with gaining some buy-in from people that didn't feel like this wild idea I had was anywhere in any way reasonable. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. So my question would be, what is your knowledge of the Green Tree Oktoberfest? History, who runs it, how's it paid? And then the second part of my question would be, what are your thoughts on its future?
This is a great question. I had to do some research and I talked with my husband because we've only lived here in Green Tree for a little over 4 years. But we have attended the Oktoberfest a few times and enjoyed it for sure. So I had to do my research because, and I don't, so it started in 1997 and it appears that you guys have some sponsors and donors, and it's run by the Oktoberfest committee. This is a really hard question to answer because I know some people probably agree and some people agree that it should stay and maybe some people think it shouldn't. I think community activities that bring people together are so important. And it's one of the beautiful things about Green Tree that our family has loved. It's a small community. We walk to Oktoberfest. It's just very sweet and it feels very old fashioned and we love that. But sometimes, I know that these are the decisions that you all sometimes have to make if there's funding that's not there to have an activity. So I'm going to answer your question kind of generally in that I don't know specifically. If I were to pick and I had all the money in the world, absolutely we'd keep Oktoberfest. But when hard decisions have to be made, yeah, that would be something I need to do a lot of information gathering about. So, yes, is that I'll answer more if we have time later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Diane, I'm up next. Thanks for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
My question is, how would you strengthen communication and engagement between Borough Council and residents to ensure transparency and public trust?
So first of all, there was another question on here and I might sort of answer it now. I'm having to do with the workshops, and that's something I do have experience kind of watching a group grow into that, adding workshops. That was what we ended up doing, was adding workshops on the school board. And I think that's a wonderful way to engage the community. I think it's a wonderful way. It is also more time efficient. And so I think if we can engage community members in participating in workshops. I was a high school teacher before, high school and middle school teacher before. I was a therapist, my current job now, and I really think we sometimes underestimate the value of and the skills and talents and thoughts of our young people. And so I would love to see our high schoolers and middle schoolers included on finding ideas and creative solutions. I mean, you ask a teenager a question nowadays, they know how to get information and they can find all the different options that are out there. And I think we have some untapped potential here in Green Tree with our teenagers and our youth. And so that's one area. I think you can also use surveys a little more. I know sometimes it's hard to get people to engage with those, but surveys and even focus groups, I think, can be really useful. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, my question was going to be in regard to the workshop meetings, but you answered it some. So I did have two questions there, but the other one might not be fair, in regard to, have you observed any council meetings? Okay, so I can ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
here we go then. So I was gonna ask.
I've attended the lively ones, I'll just say that.
And ask you the other one, the workshop, but here we go. What are your general observations of council's effectiveness in addressing citizen input and concerns in the past year?
So I think that effectiveness, I think there has been an increase in effectiveness. I see things posted on Facebook a lot more. I'm not on Instagram, but I don't know, does the borough have an Instagram account? Oh, okay, that's on another list of communications. Nowadays, my teenagers would tell you, oh, only boomers are on Facebook, or, you know, other groups outside of their demographic. And so, I think maybe using some, other social media. Anyway, I'm not answering the question, I'm sorry. So I have seen the effectiveness improve. I have seen a greater openness, to community input, and I've been very grateful for that, really, really grateful for that. And, I think that we have a little bit of a generation gap sometimes. And again, this comes with working with teenagers all the time. They will tell you where the gaps are, but it used to be that, we would just work as a group. If we were deciding things, we would just work as a group, and we would sometimes have to make decisions so quickly, we didn't have time to include the people that might be affected. And so where now we live in an age of information where everybody knows if they want the information, they can get it. And if they can't get it, there's something wrong. And so I think there's maybe just some growing pains in that area of, we might have to sacrifice some efficiency for including and being, garnering some more communication and openness. But I see that as a desire of this council, and I've been really appreciative of that as a community member at Green Street myself.
By the way, I'm a baby boomer.
Yeah, well, I'm yeah. Yeah, insult the mayor, that was not on my bucket list this evening.
Thank you for coming in. Can you identify the borough's main revenue streams and our largest areas of expense? In the current climate, is always the potential reduction or loss for funding for some of these things. And what strategies would you support so that we can retain a balanced budget to minimize any impacts on our residents?
Okay, this is a great question. I did my homework.
Awesome. That's what I want.
I thought I could explain it all and take a bunch of time, or I can show you I got the chart. I printed the charts. Thank you.
Right.
This is a sign of transparency too, that I'm not just seeing, I mean, I found everything I wanted to find on the website, so kudos. Okay, so a couple things I thought about. So I think Pittsburgh is having this problem as well. They've lost a lot of commercial, like income from commercial. And I see that as definitely something over the last 4 years since we've been here, we see so many more open, like empty properties and offices. So it's not, it's been since COVID, but it feels like it's getting worse. And so my first comment about this is looking for creative strategies to stop the bleeding, so we're not losing more than what we've already lost. And just seeing what we can research, maybe even about what other cities have done, if they've been able to stop the bleeding. Or even creative uses for these properties where the owners of these properties can actually get income from them, and therefore then they're worth more, and then more taxes come in based on that. So that's one of the pieces. The other one that we have some grants, but there's always more grants out there. And so that's another area that I would be curious about exploring. And I think we have people in our community that if we spread the word about some of these ideas we're exploring, we probably get a lot of help.
Thank you.
So how do you actively learn about our local government roles and the ever-evolving needs of our community to help you make the informed recommendations for your committee? And what, if any, personal difficulties do you expect in this position, and how will you address them?
When my husband saw this question, he said, tell them you love research. I absolutely love research. I do it for fun. So, yeah, I love the information age that we do. We can find out and we can get ideas. They're out there. So I think research is one. I also think connection to people in our community. So asking people, we have, Green Tree Borough residents, they're our experts. They know what's going on and they are most connected to the needs that we have and potential. And a lot of them have ideas about potential solutions. So definitely tapping into that. Personal difficulties. I've spent time in a lot of places, not just here in the US, but around the world. And I don't know. I've also done work in developing countries, and we love Green Tree. It's a wonderful, safe, beautiful place to live, and we love the people here. But a lot of these problems that we're facing are very first world. I came to the pool meeting, the really big one that was quite wild. And they're real needs, and our community it's beautiful. It's a beautiful community, but I think I might struggle with feeling a little frustrated sometimes at the little things that we're frustrated about when we have so many good things here, so many good things. And obviously we want to work to keep it the best it is, but I'm kind of simple, and I think there's definitely some things that are there to work on. And there's some ways to grow, but I also think I'm gonna struggle with feeling like we're caught in the weeds instead of stepping out and going, okay, what's the big problem? What are the big issues that we need to deal with? But that's just kind of my personality too. So now you all know a little bit, and you can remind me of this later.
Well, this was 5 minutes. The alarm just went off and we've completed our questions. So is there anything that you have for us? Anything you want us to know? Anything that we can answer for you?
I didn't think I had time. I usually go overtime.
Do we have anything? Are there any other questions that we have?
Yeah, how did you end up in Green Tree? You mentioned your husband was in the Air Force. I take it that's why you've lived in different parts of the world. So how did you end up in this little niche?
It was a blessing, that's for sure. It was a blessing. So we moved here when, yeah, you guys were still on lockdown, but it didn't feel like lockdown because we come from California. So everybody's going, we're so locked down. And we were like, yeah, it was wonderful. We got a little short-term rental, actually like a couple houses down from here. And we would walk to the library and we walked to the swimming pool and we just loved it. And my husband comes home one day. We were looking in this within, I don't know how many minutes. We were looking within like 25 minutes radius of the Air Force Base, the 9/11. He's stationed at the 9/11. And by the way, he's about to retire, and we're planning to keep roots down here in Green Tree. So we have this, we're at this little Airbnb and we're loving it. And he comes home one day and he goes, don't look anywhere else besides Green Tree. This community is amazing. And my kids were all saying too, they loved it and they didn't really like the other areas we were looking at. And so we just narrowed our search. I told him he was insane because I think maybe 3 houses came up in the market in 2021 that spring. Like, I don't think there were any, well, we got one of them. And we just felt like we hit the jackpot. So,
I'm from here too.
yes, and my
Not
husband's
from Green Tree, but from Pittsburgh.
yeah. He's from, yeah. He grew up, his parents were Army, but his mom's from kind of the North Hills area. So, yeah, we'll just say the in-laws were not really happy we settled in South Hills. It was too far away from them. We might as well just stay in California.
Might as well be California. Someone goes to the courthouse frequently. Well, thank you very much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I guess it's my time.
I think so.
Yeah, so we'll do the same thing. So we're
Okay.
gonna ask you to say your name and your address. Once that starts, I'll start the clock. We'll have a 15-minute, maybe the 5-minute buffer, and it'll be the same.
I don't think it's gonna go that far.
Well, you never know, right? So thank you very much for being here.
I'm Don Fingers, I'm at 60 Terrace Drive.
Hey Don, thanks for coming in tonight. Council is often tasked with making decisions that have long-term impacts on the community well beyond any individual member's term of service. What factors would guide you when making those kinds of decisions? And if you believed a decision was in the borough's long-term best interest but faced opposition from a segment of the community, how would you balance those conflicting considerations?
Well, you're gonna hear this word from me a lot, it is trust. I think the residents, I think there's a big trust issue in Green Tree. And I think if we can earn the residents' trust, I think things would go so much smoother here. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I'm drawing a blank.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about a specific time that you made a decision that might not have been unanimously supported, whether in a professional environment, with a team or another colleague? And how you approach that and how you manage conflict?
The only thing I can think of is I've been in construction for 15 years. And there was times where I was the only one that wanted to do a certain thing and everybody else was against me. And what I had to do was go to each person and say to them, listen, trust me, I can do this. And on the one particular job, the main guy said, you know what? I trust you. And this job worked out where I ended up being a hero. And people started seeing my way of thinking, and it really worked out good for me.
Okay, thank you.
John, what is your knowledge of the Green Tree Oktoberfest history, who runs it, how it's paid for, etc., and what are your thoughts on its future?
I don't know too much about how it's paid for, but I know I moved in Green Tree in 1999, and Oktoberfest was a pretty neat thing in Green Tree. It was a 2-day event, and I think even before that, years and years ago, I think it was even more than a 2-day event. I can remember coming to Green Tree up at the field probably in the, I don't know, maybe in the 80s. Did they have Oktoberfest then?
It could have been, maybe St. Margaret's Fair.
Well, they got the centennial.
Yeah, but it was big. It was nothing like how it is now. And I wish it would get back to that. I mean, I think it's really gone downhill. When Jan Adamski had it, I think it was nice, but I think even then it was. I think with Green Tree, I think it should be a much more bigger event. You know, you look at all these other places you go to out in Robinson and over in Castle Shannon, they have some pretty nice things going on. Ours is just, I think we could do more. I would like to see it happen where we can do more, especially raising my grandkids here, and I would like it to be the way it used to be.
Yeah, Don, thanks for coming tonight. Sure. My question is, how would you strengthen communication and engagement between Borough Council and residents to ensure transparency and public trust?
You gotta earn their trust. We have to earn their trust. I think so many people that I've talked to in Green Tree, you know, we talk about something, they throw their hands up in the air. They're like, "Hey, yeah, go ahead. You know, good luck." And I think we need to earn the people's trust. There's too much. They just don't trust anybody. They're upset.
they don't wanna come to these meetings. I just think there has to be a way that you guys earn their trust, so you can make these decisions and they believe you, and they don't argue back.
Thank you.
Don, what is your opinion in regards to council having regularly scheduled monthly workshop meetings to engage in dialogue with Green Tree residents regarding borough matters and for council members to discuss borough issues prior to their formal monthly meeting?
Mayor, it's 6 or 7 months ago, I think, when me and you had the private meeting, when I go up and talked about School Street. I think that was the good. If we could do that every month and try to solve people's problems before they come here, before they're upset, before they're mad. I think if we could do that and answer some of the questions before they come to the meeting, I think everybody would get along a little better. I think that was a really nice thing that you did.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming in.
Mhm.
All right, can you identify the main revenue streams and our largest areas of expense in Green Tree? And with the potential reduction and the loss of funding resources, and that can be federal, state, grants, all of it. What strategies would you support to keep a balanced budget and minimize the negative effect and impact on the residents?
I'll be honest with you, I don't have a clue. Yeah, like I said, I've been in construction for 50 years. I don't know anything about that. And that's the other thing I wanted to say, that I think there's a lot of residents in Green Tree that are older than me, that really don't get involved because they don't have a computer, or they don't know how to email, or they don't know. I think if we get those people involved or talk to those people too, I think we can learn a lot more. Like me, I don't have a clue. I wouldn't even know how to answer that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm still typing, but thank you. So how will you actively learn about our local government rules and the ever-evolving needs of our community to help you make informed recommendations to your committee? And what, if any, personal difficulties do you expect in this position, and how will you address them?
Well, I think going back to that, I think a lot of people need to trust council. I think that'll go a long way. I think that'll save a lot of time. I think it'll save, I think so many people in Green Tree get upset on things, how they take so long to happen. And if we could give them answers before the meeting, like how you did, Mayor, I think that things would be a lot better in Green Tree. I know myself, sometimes I get frustrated. Even on my street, years ago when I moved in here, the street was a manicured, everybody's lawns were nice, everything was, it was a great place. I had my kids buy houses here. They're raising their kids here. I got 4 grandkids here. And now people's grass, weeds, dandelions are everywhere. People's walls are falling down. The garbage men come by and take the garbage, and then I go out and clean it up because of cups and papers and garbage. It seems like we need to do something in Green Tree to, I don't know, make it the way it used to be. To me, it seems like people just don't care anymore.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So we are not quite at the.
Well, I knew that was gonna happen.
That's okay. So what do you have for us? Do you have any questions for us?
I just-
Anything to tell us?
No, I just said it. I just wish Green Tree would be the way it used to be 25 years ago.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Is there any other questions?
Thanks for coming down.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming. We
Sure.
appreciate your
Well, you'll
time.
be seeing more.
Thank you.
Good.
So council, we do not have another, interview until the scheduled time of 7:40. Council is going to break during this time for an executive session. You're welcome to stay in here. We are breaking to an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. We will be back before 7:40. went right on over. We'll get started at 7:40, but I can do my preamble. What, so you tell me, no, you're good, you'll run up. So thanks to everyone for sticking around during our break, we appreciate it. We will get started with our last two, interviews for this evening. We're going to, when we begin, we'll ask the candidate to say their name and their address. Then I'll start my clock, which will go off at around 15 minutes to give a 5-minute, warning for all of us here. And we will just be asking questions. The candidate will, say their answers. Then we will, if there's time at the end, they have the opportunity to say something to us. And then if we have any follow-up, questions, we will ask. So it is 7:40. We're ready to go. You're ready.
Yeah. Hi, Kara Martorella, 179 Arla Drive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Council is often tasked with making decisions that have long-term impacts on the community, well beyond any individual member's term of service. What factors would guide you in making those kinds of decisions? And if you believed a decision was in the borough's long-term best interest, but faced opposition from a segment of the community, how would you balance those conflicting considerations?
So I think that's a great question. I think with any decision being made, really having the data to support it. So starting off first, gathering that data, making sure with the decision you're making, who does the decision affect? So you want to make sure that you talk to those people the decision is going to directly affect. Also with any type of governing body or people, for instance, that work with that area that a decision needs to be made. So the experts of that area. And then making sure that you speak with the people who are making the decision with you and having that data and facts and having an open conversation and transparency with the other people you're making the decision with, because maybe they think of something that you might not know. So dialogue would be key. Then once you make the decision, having someone oppose it or whatever that may be, you need to be able to support the why and having those open conversations with, this is why we're making this decision, and having it conversational more than a direct authoritative, we're making this decision, that's the end of discussion. So it's open, giving them the chance to ask questions and having that dialogue between the two parties is essential to back up your answer. But having data would be essential to back up the decision you're making.
Thank you.
Tell us about a time that you made a decision, using a specific example, that wasn't unanimously supported by a team member or colleague. How did you approach that and how do you generally manage conflict?
Yeah, so I work in an account manager in my outside life of Green Tree. So every day I'm making decisions going in between a client and then the business as a whole. So I am that middleman. So essentially making decisions, maybe not necessarily that my company would agree with or the client, trying to find a common ground. So first, understanding the reason why maybe a decision needs to be made, understanding that why and communicating with the decision makers, the reason behind that decision needing to be made or why somebody is asking for that. So when I talk to our company, I will say, my client needs this and this is why they're needing it. So then the company will come back and say, we can't do that. So then I ask for the reasonings again behind it and making sure I clearly communicate, but in a very a compassionate manner of why maybe we can't make that decision, but also active listening to the client's needs of why they feel that decision maybe it doesn't best suit them. So making sure that we're open, communication stays that way, but listening to my clients as well and making sure that they're feeling heard. So even though they might not agree with the decision that maybe we couldn't make for them, that they understand the reason why behind that. Communication would be key in building that trust between that relationship as well. So they trust that you did everything that you could to try to get that resolution. It might just take Philip not their way that time, but you did actively fight for it. Sure.
What is your knowledge of the Green Tree Oktoberfest? History, who runs it, how it's paid for, etc. And what are your thoughts of its future?
Yeah, so Oktoberfest I know has been around for many years. I believe 1997 it was the first Oktoberfest. And it's paid for by vendors, admission fees, and then any general, if grants are funded towards that as well. I feel Green Tree Oktoberfest is a staple upon this community and can be used to bring attention to Green Tree from so many different avenues. We are such a gem hidden in the South Hills and can really use Oktoberfest to highlight what Green Tree is about, whether it's our schools, our activities, our athletics. We can really shine with Oktoberfest, so being able to expand upon that and draw additional revenue, maybe from outside communities, people coming in, would be great for our borough to continue that tradition.
Thank you.
Kara, I'm up next. Thanks for being here tonight. How would you strengthen communication and engagement between Borough Council and residents to ensure transparency and public trust?
So I think that transparency with the community, that's ultimately the goal, is build trust and open communication with our residents, because with a seat on council comes a responsibility and the responsibility to serve. So first and foremost, making sure that we're giving our residents the opportunity to speak and be heard through multiple different avenues. We have a lot of different, whether it's families, a lot of different ages, an older population, a young population. Are we reaching all those different demographics to make sure their voices are feeling heard? There's different avenues that we can use for all of them as well. Whether it is using different surveys, I know we have the app, there's different communication through the app as well, but then going out and speaking to the community. In addition, with giving them opportunities to come and be heard, maybe outside of the meetings. Some families are very active, some older adults maybe not have the opportunity to attend meetings. What other avenues can we look at to make sure their voices are heard first and foremost, to build trust and open communication? The other thing would make sure that we are, any plans for changes, any plans of decision making, that we're clean, giving them clean decision-making processes that we're doing, or different agenda ways to, if we're opening a workshop meeting, these are the discussion topics we're going to discuss and any details. So making sure our residents are in the know with clear and concise and a clean way of what's happening in our borough is key to rebuild that trust, because trust is definitely earned, not given right away. So we have to earn their trust.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. What is your opinion in regard to council having regularly scheduled monthly workshop meetings to engage in dialogue with Green Tree residents regarding borough matters, and for council members to discuss borough issues prior to the formal monthly meeting?
Yeah, great question. I think workshops are a way to build that community's trust. Having interactive discussions with anyone who's able to attend, whether it's in person, virtually, but having that open dialogue with our community really gives our community and our residents a chance to feel heard. So I think it's essential to the progress and rebuilding that trust of our council, is to listen to what's going on. Sometimes our residents can bring up issues or have different ideas that maybe the governing body doesn't think of, and that's a great time to have that and discuss that opportunity. So I feel like it's going to be essential to the progress and success of our borough council.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Can you identify the borough's main revenue streams and our largest areas of expense?
Yes.
And given, I'll just.
No, go ahead. You can go.
And given the potential reductions or loss of some of those funding sources, what strategies would you support to maintain a balanced budget while minimizing negative effects and impacts on our residents?
Yeah, so I definitely think maintaining negative impacts and making sure residents are affected with any type of budgeting would be crucial, and that would come first and foremost. So I know our biggest main revenue streams are real estate property taxes, earned income tax, local state tax, and business privilege tax, and then additional grants that we may receive as well. So, and then our largest expenditure would be public works, whether it's poles, maintenance, roads, sidewalks, all of the things that need to keep a community running and safe. So continuing to look at outside sources of revenue, whether again, looking at grants, what things can we do outside of disrupting our community or taxes? And then again, Green Tree is so amazing and we're such a small gem. What additional resources can we do to bring in small businesses? So having the Oktoberfest continually to draw the eye of Green Tree and maybe add potential small businesses to come in here, which would be fantastic for our community overall, for jobs, and then again, additional stream of revenue.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
Yo, you're fine. You're good.
So how do you actively learn about our local government roles and the ever-evolving needs of our community to help you make informed recommendations on your committee? What, if any, personal difficulties do you expect in this position and how do you address them?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, so addressing how I would learn about how the Borough Council works and different factors of council, our community, making sure that I'm taking advantage of any classes that would be available, and then always online resources as well to make sure I'm looking up the correct information. But then again, if we have resources at our hand, asking our local council, what have you learned from this position? What are things that you have done and learned in the past? I think having an experienced council at hand is great, and have that resource is there as well. But definitely research classes, reaching out to other communities as well to learn the continuous infrastructure of how Borough Council works and making sure that I have the correct information as well. And the second part, I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question again?
What, if any, personal difficulties do you expect in this position and how would you address them?
Yeah, so the personal difficulty I feel is that the biggest thing I have is I love Green so much. I have lived here my entire life. So I am jaded in the fact that I think Green is amazing. I think that our community is amazing. We are something special. So it's going to be very hard to tell me that we're not something special, but how can we improve and continue to make Green and keep the core values first and foremost? And I really do feel that that starts with our residents and actively listening to them. So my biggest personal hindrance was going to be Green Tree's amazing. It's the best place to live. Can't tell me any way other different way.
Thank you. So we are not yet, you're approaching the
Mhm.
15-minute mark. But we're not yet there. Do you have anything you wanted to offer to us? Any other questions? And then if our council has any other questions.
I do have a question, if that's okay. What was your ideal candidate? And whoever wants to address this would be great, or if it's the entire body. What was your ideal candidate for council? What are you looking for?
I think we should each
Yeah,
give the
that's
trade.
gonna
I
be
think that's a great way to do it. So why don't we start on one end, Roland?
Well, I myself, I'm looking for someone that is community oriented and will put aside their thoughts to make the right decisions for what the majority of the community wants.
Thank you.
I think the biggest thing I'm looking for is someone who is going to investigate for themselves. Not worry about another person's perspective on council but look at the actual information, what it means for short-term and long-term effects of the community, and then make the decision based on that knowledge instead of worrying about all of the noise. Because that's one of the things, it can get very noisy in this position. You can have a lot of different conflicting opinions, but you have to really use the information you have at hand to make a good decided decision that you feel good about. Because it's really not about, like, we work together as a whole, but we all come up here as individuals. And that's the most important thing. That's why there's so many of us. If we wanted just one person voting, we wouldn't have 7 different seats. So it is about bringing your own individual thoughts to the process as well.
Great, thank you.
Looking for someone that's data driven, that looks at the data and active listening, active listening from other members of council, and active listening from the people that's going to affect. So those are the two main things. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of a combination of what all has been mentioned. I really do believe in making data-driven decisions. I'm looking for someone who's willing to learn. You don't know everything when you're in this position. And it is very easy for people to think that you know everything. And so I'm looking for someone who's willing to recognize that they need to learn in this position. And I'm looking for someone who isn't afraid to make hard decisions, which can all very often mean putting your emotions aside. We all feel very passionately about this community. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. But sometimes what you want isn't what you actually would want if you were making your own personal decision. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I would say a lot of what has been said already, I am a big fan of data-driven decisions myself. I think that's very important. I think the ability to work with a lot of different personality types, and work well and cohesively, and understanding that you're not going to agree with everyone all of the time. And so how do you make a decision that benefits the community as a whole? And oftentimes, as you know, the community as a whole isn't always at these council meetings, voicing their, so to be able to have the foresight to know what this community needs in the short term and the long term, and make those decisions for people who can't always come here and speak up for themselves, and not only getting along or being able to work with effectively with council, but the administration in focus.
Yeah, similar to what has been said, which is, I appreciate someone who can put emotions aside, who can put their feelings, how it seems aside, and really be able to look at data from what we have, and then, kind of piggybacking on what Ms. House said, you know, it's not necessarily about the squeakiest wheel and who's coming and whose voice is the loudest. It's making the best decision for as many of the community members, those who can't always come to these meetings or whatever, and being a voice for everyone.
I'm looking for a public servant who puts the needs of the residents ahead of their own personal agendas.
I have one more question.
We have 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Actually, Shannon, this is for you as council president. What do you envision for this council? What's your utopia of what this council would look like moving forward?
I think my utopia is a compassionate yet informed borough council. We are all individuals. Everyone works differently. I would like to see all of council understand that we all work differently, and also do what is asked of them. There can be a misconception that the president of council can tell everyone up here what to do. That is absolutely not within what I could, trust me, things would be easier if I could. But to really make sure that everyone is doing their work. You know, Green Borough Council takes the many hands light work model. And that works best when people are actually engaging. The committees is really where a lot of ideas need to come from, and that's where you should be thinking about those ideas and thinking about how you can present them to our community as a whole. Nothing gets decided in a committee. You really are just thinking about recommendations. But it does require like committees to meet. I tell everyone, your committee must meet at least once a month. I cannot hold anyone's hand if they're not doing that. But I would like to see that, you know, we have a new council coming in. I would expect that everyone would continue to do that regardless of who's up here. I also think that I would like to have a council that understands that we aren't subject experts. We are not, none of us up here have a degree in local government. None of us have a degree from ISBA. Only one person in the room does. That is our borough manager. We have wonderful staff here. Everyone from public works all the way up to the people who work in the office are, you know, in every department, really understanding what they do and how they are the experts. I wouldn't want someone coming into my work telling me everything that I think you should be doing, telling me what they think they should be doing. We all have degrees for a reason. Our work here on council is to really set policies and procedure and move us forward. It is not to get in the day-to-day operations. So yeah.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
We have 2 minutes. Is there any other questions? I have one. You mentioned core values of Green Tree. What do you think the core values of Green Tree are?
Yeah, great question. I think the core values of Green Tree, first and foremost, are honesty would be the first one. Admitting honesty is making sure that even if you made a mistake, that you were honest about that mistake and you own up to your decision. So I think first and foremost, that's the first one. Second is looking after your neighbor. Green Tree here, we stay friends. We are family. We are more than just a community. We have each other's backs. So I think that making sure that you look out for your neighbor, this would be another core value of that as well as Green Tree. The third core value, I think, is, that when we are Green Tree residents, we are representing ourselves, but also this community in any other aspect that we're at. So when we are at outside functions, when we are at, whether it be ball games, whether we are out in the community doing anything as Green Tree residents, we're also representing Green Tree. So holding that high, our heads high when we're out there and saying, yes, we're from Green Tree, but our actions also stand for this community as well as ourselves. So I feel like those are the core values. And then the other one I would say as well is not, being able to say, you know what, I made a mistake and pivot and make a new decision.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Just what community activities are you involved in? I think most of us know, but just for the general.
Sure. So currently I coach our little first and second grade D3 cheerleaders. I've been doing that for 3 years. I coached soccer for 1 year until I realized I don't know that much at coaching soccer. However, we did go undefeated, so that was fun, but they were super little. So I coached soccer. I work with KOYES, so that's our cheer, our wrestling and our football program. So highly involved in that. I serve as much as I can with our baseball and softball program as well. My kids play sports throughout the activity. Within local, but not so local, I go to the Log Church, so I lead growth groups there. I lead and help and sub in our children's ministries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Let's go.
Thanks for being here.
I think this is aggressive.
Mr. Dow.
Hi there.
You may have a seat.
Like testifying.
Alright. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thanks for having me. It's been a prolifically long Monday.
I believe it. Thanks.
Hopefully my voice will hold out.
Well, we can hear you with the microphone. So to give you an idea of what'll happen, what I outlined in the email. We're gonna take turns asking you questions. There won't be any commentary. We'll be just doing note taking. I have an alarm set on my phone for 15 minutes because that'll give us the 5-minute warning for all of us. If there's time at the end of, if there's time left over, we will ask if you have any questions for us. And then we might have some questions for you. Once you say your name and your address, that's when my 15 minutes will begin.
Okay. Mark Daffner, 1120 Green Ridge Lane.
Thanks for being here tonight. The
Thanks.
council is often tasked with making decisions that have long-term impacts on the community, well beyond any individual member's service. What factors would guide you when making those kinds of decisions? And if you believed a decision was in the borough's long-term best interest but faced opposition from a segment of the community, how would you balance those?
Well, you asked that question as if I'm the only one making the decision. Okay, council is a collective body, so I think we have to all look at the gains and benefits of the positions, see what's likely to happen. And, you know, it's very difficult. I deal with sentencing in the criminal courts all the time. It's difficult to be a fortune teller. Everybody has these grandiose ideas and you think you're gonna make a decision and then, you know, this is gonna happen down the road, and most of the time it doesn't. So, you know, I think you really have to examine these things almost with a microscopic view. If it's an issue that is that important to the township, to the borough. You know, because we don't know where it's gonna go. I mean, that's the truth. You know, there's no, you know, we can list pros and cons until we're blue in the face, and we have no idea what's really gonna happen in 10 or 15 years, do we? Not really. So, you know, I think the best way to go about that is you just really need to pay attention to detail. Every little thing, if it is something that important, you know, and it is going to affect the borough for years and years and years to come, then we need to know everything. Thanks, Deb.
Tell us about a time that you made a decision using a specific example that wasn't unanimously supported by a team or colleague. How did you approach that and how do you manage conflict?
Well, I'm smiling because I do that every day. Okay. I think the classic example, the legal case that sort of made me a minor league celebrity is Commonwealth versus Ray Shetler. Everybody in the world would have told us not to try that case. This is the cop killing case, Westmoreland County, in 2015, when people still liked the police. But we didn't have much of a choice. In fact, my own client wanted to plead guilty, and the district attorney would not extend anything. An offer, they did extend an offer, plead guilty to first-degree murder without an agreement to sentence, which, under those circumstances, tantamount to pleading to death. We weren't gonna do that. And, Ray still wanted to take a plea and maybe go to the Superior Court. This is my own client. Now, I was probably remiss in telling him this. I said, no, so we're gonna win this with self-defense. Long story short, that became still the only case in US history where self-defense has successfully been used in cop killing. Only fourth case that somebody's walked away from that. So, that's a big example, but really, I deal with adversity every single day. And most of the time we try to, find some middle ground there. But if you can't, sometimes you just have to go and do it. You might be surprised at the results.
Yes, my question would be, what is your knowledge of the Green Tree Oktoberfest? History, who runs it, how it's paid for, and what are your thoughts of its future?
Well, it's sort of a sucker bet question, since I know you're the guy that started it back in the 90s. I think I missed the first, 3 or 4 years maybe, but I've been active in Oktoberfest every year since. I actually remember standing with you in I think the first year I lived here in 2006, and still loading tables into trucks and cleaning up garbage that had accumulated over the previous 2.5 days because it used to be longer. And that is actually one thing I would change. I would bring back the 2 days. As far as funding, it's my understanding the borough donates roughly $10,000 every year. The rest of it is covered by vendors, sponsors, and so on. And I think, I have not seen the paperwork, but I think we end up always paying back the borough. Right? I think we do. But very low. So, let's suffice to say, I know a lot about Oktoberfest. I'm in favor of it. I think it's a great showcase for the borough. We have people from all over coming in here, and there are people that ask me when it is. And these are people that live in, Robinson, for example. They want to know. It's a great event. One of the better community events around here. So it's sort of like the unsung hero of Oktoberfest. Well, Mount Lebanon always has their big, their big things. They advertise everywhere, but everybody seems to know about our event. And I'm in favor of I guess re-extending it the way it was years ago. As long as we have the sponsorship and the money and the vendor participation to support it. Because that's really why I cut back to 1 day. And the most brilliant move about Oktoberfest was moving in September. Because those, in the first decade and a half or so, standing out in weather like it is today for a weekend was really not very fun.
Thank you for that.
Mark, I'm up next. Thanks for being here tonight. How would you strengthen communication and engagement between Borough Council and residents to ensure transparency and public trust?
Well, I think first we need to actually have communication. Okay, the newsletter is great once a month. It's more than what most communities do. I'm in favor of really almost, I don't want to say extreme, but extreme open door policy. Where citizens of the borough can always have access to council. And, not just email. There has to be a phone number. There's got to be an open end. And if these people have a problem or an issue, they can come and talk to us. Because we're also members of the community too. We can see if we can work those problems and those issues out together. And that's what I'd really like to see is the members of the community being, I guess, feeling comfortable in doing something like that. In talking to us, you're only 2 steps up there on the riser, not 50 steps up. So I think it's it's really a perception type of issue. Transparency, we're already, I think, very transparent. The issue isn't really as much transparency as it is communication. And just, being out there, being in the community and talk about things with people that they actually are concerned about.
Right, thank you.
Hi, Mark, my turn. What is your opinion in regard to council having regularly scheduled monthly workshop meetings to engage in dialogue with Green Tree residents regarding borough matters and for council members to discuss borough issues prior to the formal monthly meeting?
Well, I think that's sort of a follow-up to today's question. You know, I'm in favor of that. I mean, if we can host even a breakfast once a month for council and members of the community. I like, I wouldn't say, what do you call it? I'm not even reading the question. I'm gonna look at it once. But whatever you call it, I would prefer to think of it as almost a town hall situation, and even more than once a month, if we can work it out. That's all part of engaging the community and making these people feel that we really are a community. That it's not just council, local government, and then they're just off, them and, the 5 people that show up at council meetings. So I'm 100% in favor of that. I would even go almost as far as to say that, and this would sort of be an experimental thing, I'm sort of thinking through right now. So if it sounds really weird, then, forgive me. But, again, I mean, you hear on the street, you hear a lot of people whining and complaining about things. I think it would actually behoove council if we maybe had sort of a quasi ADR type of system, alternative dispute resolution, and people can come in here and again, if they have a problem, we can help them work through it before it goes to the point of having to go to court, or before there's fights in the streets with their neighbors, or before they're chasing down the school bus because they think it went too fast. I'm really in favor of things being open and really in favor of engaging the community. I think that's one of the most important things we could do.
Thank you.
All right, Mark.
That would be me.
That is you. Can you identify the borough's main revenue streams and our largest areas of expense? And given potential reduction or loss of some of the funding sources coming in the future possibly, what strategies would you support to maintain a balanced budget while minimizing the negative impacts on our investment?
First of all, nobody wants a balanced budget. We need a surplus. Okay, that's the goal, not to balance it, not to make it a zero-sum equation. That's ridiculous because you never hit that. You always end up with a deficit. But as far as sources, I mean, Green Tree, like almost everywhere else in the world, we are funded by a bunch of different taxes, whether it is business privilege tax, earned income tax, property tax, and so on. I think we have bonds still out there, right, from 5 years ago or so. And that's really helped. It's the things that we've already done, I think, has been helpful. For example, the bridge project, putting a lot of that on PennDOT state was just a phenomenal accomplishment there. But really, I would look into, and I say this as a business owner here, I would actually look into maybe raising the millage rate slightly, or tying that to gross revenue or even number of employees like some communities do. Because let's be honest here, the hotels aren't gonna go anywhere. Okay, if you raise them half a point, they're not gonna pick up and leave. Okay, they just aren't. We already have a fairly big problem with Parkway Center because they are losing tenants. I think they're in foreclosure actually. But if you gotta go after the people that actually have the deep pockets that really don't care. It's all a write-off for them. So they don't feel it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that this 1.5% business tax that we have here, or percent millage, that rate, I believe, was thought about in 1982. So it's sort of the taxation equivalent of currency transactional report, where if you bring $10,000 to the bank, they have to report it. It's in cash. That was, that had its inception in the Nixon era when $10,000 actually meant something. So we need to at least look into that. I think, something like that alone can do wonders if we lose funding somewhere else, because you're getting much more. That's just one idea. I'm not gonna sit here all night. I know you guys had a long night. I certainly have had a long day. But it would be something along those lines, and we have to be very careful that we're not turning off citizens and pushing people away or making this a less attractive place to live, because this place is a phenomenal borough to live in. It really is. We know it, but a lot of people don't. So, again, it's a delicate balance.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. So how will you actively learn about our local government rules and the ever-evolving needs of our community to help you make informed recommendations on your committee? What, if any, personal difficulties do you expect in this position, and how will you address them?
You mentioned committee. Was there another part of that question?
Yeah, the whole part of the question is part of the duties on Green Tree Council will be to serve on multiple committees and to chair one of those committees. We are a collective body that must work together. Tell us how your leadership experience has prepared you to lead this role. How will you actively learn about our local government rules and the ever-evolving needs of our community to help you make informed recommendations on your committee? And what, if any, personal difficulties do you expect this position to experience in this position, and how will you address them?
Okay, I'll take this one first. I actually don't expect any personal difficulties. I have served in so many different roles and so many different committees, so many different bodies, not just as a county committeeman since 1999. I was a Senator Bodak appointee. But also in the bar, I'm on the professional ethics committee of the bar. I spoke with sole and small firm practitioner committee, criminal litigation section. Just things like that over the past 3 decades professionally, and that's really where you cut your teeth, so to speak, in terms of being able to operate in the confines of a multi-member body like council. So I wouldn't expect any real difficulties here. As far as learning about local government, I'd like to say I know I don't know everything. Nobody in the world knows everything there is to know, but I have been around here. I have been politically active. I am aware of the borough code. I know our ordinances. I've weighed in on some of them. I've represented people in the borough. I don't foresee any problems at all. If there's any issues, I'm all for bringing people together, bring people to the table. You're going to always have some sort of diametric opposition, one side or another. But as we can see right now with the government shutdown, that never really works, does it? Nothing ever gets accomplished. So, whatever it takes, we have to be able to act as a body, as a unit. It's not just, I'm the head of this committee, I'm the head of that committee, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You're not just off, alone. This is a collective body. We have to, really, I would actually say, I am not sure how the committees technically work, but I would encourage participation of every council member in every committee. Maybe not, the leader of that committee or the chair of it. But
That's what
I
happens
think
when you
it
come
needs to be-
here. Yeah,
I think it needs to open, everything needs to be open for every member to, as well as the public.
okay, so we are at 5 minutes. We are done with our questions. Do you have questions for us or anything you want to add?
No, I really don't. Do you have questions for me? Does anybody have questions?
Anybody have?
Anybody have questions?
No, we're not taking audience questions.
Okay.
We can go.
Well, we're done with the official ones.
No, we're gonna make sure it's the same for everybody.
Okay.
I might have had one. I'm going back to my notes. Hold on. Okay, I'll ask, since, my question actually is in relation to what we were just discussing. You said that you said you're not sure about how the committees and how they actively work, and that everyone should be a part of all of the committees. Sometimes that is actually in violation of the Sunshine Act. So how will you go about making sure that your committee is able to bring fresh ideas to the Borough Council here for all of us to add input? How do you see that working out?
Well, that's actually very simple. I mean, we can have a situation where you make reports from your committee. Where everybody can weigh in on this. You can bring it up in meetings, whether it's a public meeting or a closed door meeting. I mean, that's really sort of an easy thing to do. You say, my committee is doing this. This is what we're thinking about how to deal with this issue or that issue. And then it's just, from there, it's a simple, what do you guys think? Because we shouldn't just have, one person make a decision that's gonna affect the entire borough. Apologies to the mayor, to the top guy here, but. I mean, that would really be, I think, the right way to do it.
Mr. Daphner, you said you're a local business owner, so you do value Braintree with a business in Braintree.
Absolutely. Is that a question or statement?
No, well, no, it's a question. Where is your business?
Right next door. I actually moved, after 30 years downtown, I moved my law firm next door, right above, Mitch Dubin's office. And I wish I had done this at least 20 years ago. And the truth, I mean, it's a third of the rent and free parking, for one thing. And so close to town, you could still get in. And when I first started practicing, you had to be downtown, and you could probably attest to that. If you weren't within a 5-minute walk from courthouse, you were just nobody. If you were anywhere outside city limits, you were almost a pariah. And now it's almost the other way around. My office was in Fort Pitt Commons, that's First and Grant, and that is where all of the homeless congregated all the time. I have a secretary that is still afraid even to come to this office. She has PTSD from being attacked 2 or 3 times a week by these people down there. So to answer your question, I'm right next door.
Basically, your commercial for Braintree is why we advertise our businesses. The advantage of having a business is to close it down, but.
There are a lot of advantages.
We are at 20 minutes, so we will conclude. Thank you very much for being here tonight. So where we are now, no decisions were made tonight. This all will then move to the December 1st council meeting. And then that is where, council would make a decision.
Okay.
So thank you all very much for being here. Have a wonderful night.
Right.